Welcome back to the workshop, Handyman. Today we have got us a little project coming in the shop. We're going to be back in the woodworking side of it. I classify it as woodworking project. We've got an old screen door that, wooden screen door, used to be real popular. There's still a few of them out there, and the screen's getting old and needs to be replaced. So we're going to go through it, just kind of go through what it takes to get one replaced and the tools I use to get that done. So the door itself is here. It's a nice old door, still in good shape, but I don't know how well this is going to show up, but you can see there's holes in the screen and whatever. And when you replace the screen on one of these, of course, you really want to do all of it at once because it does have a different sheen to it, let's say. So we'll go ahead and do a complete replacement of this one. The tools I like to use for that, I have a claw hammer, of course, we will need. And then one of my favorite tools is going to be the just a little pry bar. These things here, they call a little trim bar. And we use that to remove that. Now some of these screen doors do come with nails, staples, whatever in them. Some of them are painted, some are not. So like this one is painted. So I do like to use a utility knife before you get started too much, because this groove, now I don't know if it's going to really show up real well, where that's painted in there, you want to kind of knock that with a knife and run it along that to cut that paint edge. If you don't do that, what's going to happen is you're going to end up busting this up. You don't want that resistance. Also, there's a lot of times there's paint there. Try to bust as much of that loose as you can before you take your flat bar here and start working it underneath there. Now you will want to try to find your staples. Like this one here has got a staple hole. Let's see if I can show that to you. It's white on white, so it's a little bit difficult, but you see there's a staple there. You always want to put your bar as close to that as possible. If you do it out in the middle here, you're probably going to bust it. Still may bust it, but we're going to try to pull it up right at each one of those staples after we cut this line back in with our utility knife. And that should bring that piece of trim right off. And this is metal screen, so they want that replaced with the original. So we do have that. Worst part about working with metal screen, I've got a piece over here ready to go on, but the metal screen definitely wrinkles and creases real easily, so you do have to watch out for that. I think there's enough here that's going to give us good finish. If you're doing it with your your plastic type of screen, fiberglass mesh, that's much easier to work with, but it's does have its defects also. So depending on what you're using, it's a little bit easier to work with the other. This one here probably will last just as long. We'll see how all that goes, but we'll go ahead and see if we can pull some of the trim off of this and let you see what it looks like with that. Okay, once you've got that piece out of there, you'll have staples left over. We did bust a little bit of this, so we probably have to just put a little touch of glue on that and clamp it back together. I think we can make that work. That just happens because these staples don't always come out of there easy. The next thing I like to use is a tool like this. And what it does, your little end nippers here. Let's see if we can show you. There's a nail or a staple still laid in here. And you can grab a hold of that quite easily with these usually and just peel them on out, and there's other ways to do it. Now the back side of this, we can take this, and I did demonstrate this a little bit, you can take this and set it up against there and pound this back out with a nail, or with your hammer. What's going to happen when you do that, and I did a little bit of it here just to kind of demonstrate it, and it'll have to be caught and painted back in. It busts this surface out. What I prefer to do is you take your thing and you grab a hold of half of that staple or your nail, and you pull it from the back side, and it'll come right up out of there, and it leaves your finish perfectly intact. So it'll come right out on all of these quite easily if you just kind of give them a little pull. And that way you'll be able to reuse your trim. Otherwise you'll be busting your trim all up and having to go find a replacement for it. So that's how we clean that back up. It'll be ready to go back in. And then the other side of that, the screen here, does have little staples also holding it in. But when we get all done, that'll just peel right up out of there. So we'll be able to do that once we get done with everything, and just make sure we go through and clean everything up. So we'll go ahead and get all the screen out and then show you how to get it back in. Okay, once you get all of the strips off, if you've bust any of them, I'll take those and put a little glue to them, clamp them up to reuse them. We've got several of those. They just get little chips and stuff out of them. Try to get them back as good as possible. And then when you get all done with that, then you've got to still clean up. And that's why I like this little tool here also, because it works as a very good scraper. So where you got your little chips and all, you can just take that right along that edge and it cleans that up. So it's ready to have everything come back in, make sure all that's smooth. And then you can do the same thing on here, just kind of knock the loose paint, chips and stuff off of there, so you'll get a lot better look when you get it all put back together. We want to have it cleaned up a little bit, get rid of the loose paint. And so just a quick scrape across it should take care of most all the loose stuff. And once you get that all scraped up, it'll be ready to go back in there. We'll clean all this mess up and let the glue dry on the other ones, and then we'll be ready to put the screen back in. Okay, once you've got everything all cleaned up, now it's time to go ahead and start with the screen. Like I say, be gentle as you can with it. And then I like to come in here and just lay that in on the one side of the factory edge of the screen, and that'll get us fairly squared up. Make sure we're kind of sitting where we need to be here. And then we just use a small staple gun, and this has got little 1/4-inch staples in it, just something to kind of hold it in place. And from there we can just go along and staple this a couple times. And that'll get that edge. And then to keep it straight, I like to go ahead, make sure I kind of like to go straight across, and you do what you can to keep it square in the frame. And that's probably one of the trickier parts, to make sure you don't have it way out of square. So we bring that in and keep it tight. You can kind of wad that down in there, and when you're coming across this, it kind of will square itself and tighten itself right up as you go into it. And once you get that side done, you come down to the bottom and just kind of put it in place. Put one more in there. And then when you come up to do this edge, this will tighten the screen up that way. Once you have all that in there, the easiest way I find to cut this to make it fit, simply take a good utility knife with a fairly sharp blade in it, and you simply follow the corner of that. And it should be pretty well there. That's got us put back in there. We move that screen out the way a little bit, and you rescreen on that side. And then we can take our small pieces of trim and set them back in place. And I'm going to go ahead and rescreen the other part of it before I go on with the rest of this one. But as you can see, that's good and tight, and we'll be nailing or stapling that back down also. So that's pretty much how we put that back together. We'll show you the rest of it here in a minute when I get ready to nail her together. Okay, once you've got all that together, what we need to do then is, if you've got a staple gun, like I do, I can come back in here and just staple these back down, pull them into place, and put a little staple in them in a couple places, about as many as what came out of it the first time. If you don't have a staple gun, you can use little brad nails or something like that, just something to hold it in place. So it don't have to be big equipment, but if you have it, it sure is a lot easier. That's all there is to doing a wooden door or any real screen. It's not a terribly hard job, but do take your time, clean it up, make sure it fits together again. And from this point, it can be touched up with a little bit of putty and caulk and or whatever, and repaint it, touch it up, and this door will be back like brand new again. So that's what it takes. I hope that helps you out if you need to rescreen your door, and I appreciate you checking in with Workshop Handyman. And please like, share, subscribe, and give any comments. I always like to read those. Thank you much, and we'll see you on the next project.